1 week from today is Election Day, and so we have the Secretary of State ready to talk to us and give us kind of a report. Frank LaRose, Mr. Secretary, I can see it looks like you're in your office with a view of the State House there. That's a pretty nice view. Tell us where we are a week out.
Well, thank you so much, Governor. You're right. It is a week before Election Day, but of course, we're 3 weeks into election month in Ohio, and we've already seen record-breaking numbers of Ohioans taking advantage of early and absentee voting. You can see the countdown clock behind me, 6 days, 17 hours, 29 minutes, and 40 seconds until the polls open on the morning of Tuesday, November 3rd. And there are a couple things I just wanted to talk about today, Governor. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to discuss a few of these things. Of course, way back in the spring, we faced an unprecedented challenge, and Ohio's elections officials rolled up their sleeves to make sure that we were ready. We launched what we called the Ready for November Task Force, where we had a weekly meeting that was shared here on the Ohio channel. We set a few key objectives. Of course, one thing that we wanted to do is make sure that we got plenty of people registered to vote, because it's hard to get voter registration done in the traditional ways. And I'm happy to report that we surpassed 8 million registered voters in the state of Ohio. That's something that we're really proud of. We also knew that we needed to launch an unprecedented effort to recruit plenty of poll workers. I'm happy to say that over 140,000 Ohioans came to our website and signed up to be poll workers. And as we stand today, well over 50,000 of them have been trained and are ready to go to open our polling locations in a safe and accessible way on Tuesday morning, November 3rd. One of the other things that we really focused on was trying to maximize early and absentee voting. And I'll tell you, that has been a humongous success. We have seen a doubling in the number of absentee ballots that we've seen in past years, and we've seen it triple as far as early voting goes. And so by all accounts, this has been a very successful effort. And of course, we had to make sure that the right health and safety protocols were put in place. So we worked with the Ohio Department of Health and the United States Centers for Disease Control to put in place a 61-point checklist so that every voter and every poll worker can feel safe and comfortable coming to participate in early in-person voting as well as Election Day voting. Now, the bottom line is this. There have been some folks wondering, will Election Day happen as scheduled? It, of course, will. Election Day is unchangeable. The first Tuesday after the first Monday in November is set in both state and federal law. It has been unchanged since 1843. You can contrast that with primary elections, which routinely do move over the years. And we know that as a result of the pandemic, some adjustments had to be made to the way that Ohio conducted the primary back in March and, of course, concluding at the end of April. But the general election day is set, and it will not change. The polls will open at 6:30 a.m. on November 3rd, and that's important for people to know. They'll be open until 7:30 that night. Now, just like I said, we're all excited about Election Day, but you don't have to wait for Election Day, because in Ohio, we have election month. In fact, voting continues today. Voting continues tomorrow. Voting will be happening on Thursday, Friday, and as well as Saturday and Sunday. We're one of very few states in the nation that offers weekend early voting. Ohio has that. We have Saturday early voting. We've got Sunday early voting. We've got convenient evening hours this week. In fact, on Monday, the day before the election, early voting continues until 2 that day. And it's something that Ohioans are taking advantage of in really massive numbers. Now, I talked about that health and safety plan that we put together. We launched this 2 months ago, a 61-point checklist. Every Board of Elections is required to follow that checklist. What that'll make sure of is that, again, if you feel comfortable going to the grocery store, you should feel comfortable coming to your polling location. A lot of the same precautions are in place. You're going to see 6 feet of social distancing. You're going to see personal protective equipment being worn by both voters and, of course, our poll workers and any elections observers that may be there as well. You're going to see common sense things like having a door in separate from a door out where that's possible. You're going to see something as simple as a door stop so that people aren't touching the door handle all day long. Of course, wiping down of surfaces. We've been able to field massive quantities of personal protective equipment because of patriotic Ohio companies that have stepped up and answered the call and donated PPE. But we also took the vast majority of our federal dollars and pushed them out to the counties so that they could spend those dollars to procure the necessary PPE to make sure that it's safe. I talked about us wanting to maximize early and absentee voting. That's been a humongous success, Governor. And I actually have new numbers to report. As of today, 3.2 million voters have already requested an absentee ballot. 3.2 million Ohioans have already requested an absentee ballot. Now contrast that to 4 years ago, the number was 1.6 million. So we've clearly seen a doubling in absentee voting in Ohio. The bottom line is this: today is effectively the last day. The law says you can wait until Saturday, but that's a bad idea. Today is effectively the last day to request your absentee ballot. So if you want to be one of those millions of Ohioans who is voting from the safety and comfort of home, today is the day to do so. You can do it easily by returning the absentee ballot request form that we sent to all 8 million Ohio registered voters, or if you lost that or don't have it, you can go to voteohio.gov. And on that website, you can print the absentee ballot request form. Heck, if you don't have a printer, you can even make your own just using a plain piece of notebook paper, and we give you all the instructions right there at voteohio.gov. We've also seen 1.5 million Ohioans who have already returned their absentee ballot. But here's a reminder: if you requested an absentee ballot and it's sitting there on your kitchen table, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and fill it out. Do just like what Lauren and I did. Fill out your absentee ballot, put the appropriate postage in on it, and mail it in today. And once you do, you can go to voteohio.gov and track your ballot to make sure that it's received by your county board of elections. Now, we've seen over 750,000 Ohioans that have taken advantage of early voting. That's 2.5 times the number that we saw in 2016. Ohioans are clearly enthusiastic. Now, you may have seen some lines over the weekend. Of course, our board of elections work to keep those socially distanced, so it may look like a longer line than it actually is, but those lines move quickly, and that's a sign of enthusiasm. Ohioans have 216 hours of early voting, and Ohioans are taking advantage of that enthusiastically. And so if you like that in-person voting experience, don't wait. Go to voteohio.gov to find the hours and locations for early voting in your county, the location for early voting in your county, and make sure to make your voice heard. We've also seen Ohioans that have cast their ballot in huge numbers, 2.2 million, as I already said. And we also know that 840,000 ballots are still out there. So again, if you're sitting on that, make sure to get it returned right away. Something else I want to address, Governor. There's been no shortage of disinformation and misinformation out there. Now, Ohioans won't be fooled. Ohioans know that the trustworthy source for elections information is your county board of elections website or the Ohio Secretary of State website, voteohio.gov. But there are folks out there that want to spread false information. If you believe that you're seeing false information, intentional disinformation about elections, report it. We don't tolerate that in Ohio. We don't tolerate voter intimidation. We don't tolerate disinformation. The way to report that is on our email system. It's report@ohiosos.gov. That's monitored 24 hours a day, report@ohiosos.gov. And I've got a success story. Because of a thoughtful Ohioan that reported to us an incident of voter intimidation that was targeted particularly at the minority community, a really ugly and pernicious act of voter disinformation. There's a Cleveland grand jury today that actually just indicted 2 bad guys who are going to face justice for it. Our office played a role in helping to make sure that these people face justice because they were trying to confuse and intimidate voters. We won't tolerate it. Anybody that thinks that they're going to get away with that kind of thing has another thing coming. We don't tolerate that in Ohio. Ohioans know it's easy to vote. It's easy to vote in the Buckeye State. And now the bottom line is this: make your voice heard. There's no excuse for not voting. You've got a whole month of early voting, a whole month of absentee voting, and you've got in-person election day voting. And when this is all over, Governor, Ohioans will know it was a fair and honest contest. Now, one last thing about how we report election night results. We always report an unofficial result on election night. Now, what does that mean? That means we report every early vote, every absentee vote, and every in-person election day vote that's come in so far, but it's never the final story because Ohio boards of elections have 10 days to receive ballots as long as they were cast, as long as they were mailed by Monday, November 2nd. As long as it's a legal ballot, it deserves to be counted. And so when we have that unofficial result on election night, it's going to be a snapshot in time. The official result a few weeks later is the one that really counts. But here's something that we're doing that's getting a lot of attention around the nation. We're also on election night going to report the number of outstanding absentee ballots. That's a number that'll tell us how many ballots are still out there in the postal system that are waiting to come back. And that'll give Ohioans a good sense of whether that's a conclusive result they're seeing on election night or not. Again, the bottom line is this: if you got a ballot, mail it in. If you want to vote absentee, request that absentee ballot today. Whichever method you choose, make sure you vote, Ohio. Thanks so much, Governor.
Secretary, thank you very much. And thanks to all the poll workers who are going to be there next Tuesday. And thanks to everybody at the Board of Elections today that are working hard to see that people can vote today. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.